Uh, is this okay? Okay, we're live. Amazing. Um, very, very good. Very, very nice. Very, very. I guess I don't know. But anyways, good morning. Here we are. Yet another day. Yet another occasion for us. I don't know. It has been quite a little bit since anything, but here we are. I guess I I will go with the easiest thing to say. I had this idea. I think I had it before even we read the last chapter of the Mahabharata, or the last occasion in which I read anything from the Mahabharata. I already had this idea, but the problem itself is the execution, I guess. I was. I haven't been. Yeah, if I had to say, probably the real issue has been managing my own time in that sense, to be here in a proper manner instead of randomly appearing. But it doesn't mean that we don't get to be here. Finally, finally, we find ourselves in this place. So yeah, very nice. But yeah, I, as always, also sadly, I will require some time. This one, I think it shouldn't be that hard to explain, so I will try to wait for a little bit before truly going with the topic itself. I want to have. I think I haven't talked about this in quite a while. I like to have my phone because when I am using Kerita for the visual side of the explanations and such, I need to have something to watch, as always, what could be said, and as a possibility, um, I needed to possess something that can properly be accessed. I cannot be always swapping between one thing and the other, um, because it lags my whole PC. So I need my phone, and if I want to use my phone, I need to charge it today. So yeah, we're going to wait for that a little bit. Anyways, that isn't really an issue. It's simply something that will need to happen. In the meantime, patience, as always. Please, patience. Thank you. But yeah, I don't know. Um, I guess without properly getting into anything, I guess I can say it like this. This one concept, it took me some time to properly um, order, I guess. Also, very good evening, I think it is. The house. Hi. Very nice to see you around. Quite early, I think. So yeah, welcome. Here we are. Very very good. But yeah, since you're into philosophy, can I ask? So yeah. I mean, you can ask. It doesn't mean that I will be completely capable of answering. I haven't really gone that far in many fields of philosophy. I haven't really explored every single philosophist that there is. I think part of philosophy is obviously exploring such as many things as what. Is that a philosophical question? How will you say that is philosophical? Eh? That is more related to psychology, which I also know, and I don't know. I don't think I I can give you okay. I can give you the psychological response, but I don't know how will you argue about it philosophically. In how will you even try to answer it philosophically in particularly? I something along the lines of, well, maybe because the female possesses a more gentle soul, you could say that very well they have a better time when they try to look out. And males end up finding such kind of souls something more attractive and something that resonates more with them because the nature itself of man is something more harsh, something more, yeah, something more distant, while the females can, let's say, because of their gentle nature, have have an easier time or something like that. I don't know. I Yeah, but I mean, the point of they have options, it isn't anything related to philosophy. The philosophical view is trying to analyze which type of things will make it so. Let's say like this: the propositions that philosophy tries to give are the initial ones in order to minimally establish why anything happens in that way. When you already take it as a given that they have options, you're probably more on the social side. And in that sense, you're right that it could be considered socio philosophical, but it is still more about sociology than anything else. But I mean, those are facts, let's say to a certain degree. As long as you have socialized as a female, you will have higher options. You will have higher degrees of options. But that is also related, as I said before, you also have a side of psychology in all of this, which is if a female were to start to express interest in finding a potential partner, it will be easier for her to find one based simply on the notion that the availability expressed by a female means more to a male than the availability expressed by a male to a female, because more often than not, at the very least, in the present world, the simple proposition of a female being open to a relationship is more interesting than or more appealing by itself without any other idea or necessary point than it is the idea itself of a male being open to a relationship. If you were to try and establish why that is, certainly you will need to take into consideration the more sexually oriented nature of a male on one hand, and on the other, how socially we have started since a long time ago. We arrange ourselves in a way in which a male needs to be capable of bringing into the table, let's say, something useful. That is indeed the kind of the easiest explanation. Um, no, I don't mean that the man is more sexually active. I mean that the man is more sexually attracted. Um, in terms of psychology, the men, for example, the man normally desires more the first intercourse itself than any female. And it is kind of hard to fully establish even why that happens so far. I think it had to deal with something along the lines of older phylogenetics or something like that. Because since, yes, since we didn't even possess the capacity to think, it is kind of a requirement to impregnate or something along those lines. So by default, males in species want more intercourse, not because they are more active, but simply because it is a useful proposition for the sake of ensuring the survival of the species, something like that. Uh, Men are more emotional. Do what? Do you think men are more emotional? I don't think so. I wouldn't say men are emotional in general. Hardly even more with something like love. I don't think so. I would like you to explain why do you say something like that, but as far as I know, that particular field of emotional intelligence isn't something in which men thrive, you know? Okay, let me see. In normal conditions, men and women are equally emotional. Ah, okay, emotional. But in the current conditions of 80% of women dating the alpha males makes the average man more emotional because he's deprived of emotion. I think you probably yourself can notice what you said there. If the average man is deprived of emotion, how is it that as a consequence he becomes somehow emotional? I don't think it would work like that. I guess, okay, the first thing, I kind of get what you say to a certain degree, but the problem itself is by default men are not prone to find any kind of interest in emotional talk. And by default, most men don't find it even a desire to talk about emotions. It goes along the lines of uh, most, yeah, one of the main traits of a male is the high degree of orientation towards problem solving, and towards the nature itself of being practical. And because of this idea itself, it is already a given that men won't seek emotional connections as much as a female. It doesn't mean that men don't have emotion. It just means that I let's say like this. The problem isn't that what you know are highly emotional men. It is simply your expect. Yeah, I think the proper explanation will be something along the lines of your expectations end up not matching with the reality itself. I, I don't know, but okay, that is a lot of text. Let me read for yet again. Women are more emotional by their nature, and that men are tough and aggressive. That's a social construct. And the men and women are equally emotional. by their nature. Um, I don't know why would you have interpreted that problem solving means um, being more aggressive. I didn't say that, sadly, but by default, it has to deal with, I think it will be hormones. The explanation goes to the degree of testosterone and progesterone, I think it is, or estrogens. Uh, Testosterone makes a human more. It isn't aggressive. That's one thing. You're right. It doesn't make a male more or a person more aggressive. It makes them more assertive, which ends up by default making you, if it is in your character traits to solve things with aggressiveness, more aggressive, but it doesn't mean that it makes you more aggressive in any kind of way. While on the other hand, the predispositions generated on you by estrogen is something along the lines of more emotional, well, of a higher emotional intelligence, and but that is by default. It doesn't matter exactly which kind of gender you are, but it does happen, and that sadly is also known. Females need to be more emotionally, yeah, emotionally mature than men because yet another concept that comes from uh, prehistoric times, let's say, females by nature need to be capable of recognizing not only their own emotional state but also those of their surroundings. Initially, because they need to see if they can preserve their lives based on what is happening around them, and secondly, because once they have a kid, they need not only to be capable of recognizing what is going to happen in their surroundings based on the events themselves, but also how the different things that happen with the children that they brought to life might interfere or not, as well as obviously in a tier degree, the emotional state of the child itself. By default, females are, are prone to a higher degree of emotional awareness. It doesn't mean that they are more emotionally clever, let's say, or emotionally intelligent. If you, in general, if you don't even possess the capacity of recognizing what is properly happening to you, it doesn't matter which gender you are, there isn't going to be a higher degree of benefit because you try harder than somebody of the opposite gender. But the natural predisposition is, as a female, you are required to be capable of assessing things in a higher level, not just because of yourself, but also because of how everything else that is around you works in order to sustain what seems to be a necessity. Now, obviously, here is the good question, and why do we want to preserve the species? No idea. That is certainly completely outside of any realm of understanding that I am in. No, obviously. I mean, okay. Think about it like this. You're taking the concept in a more modern setting. The concept itself refers to an incredibly more simple degree. In not even when we are tribes, when you are in in animal groups, that's when the concept itself becomes apparent. when you are in animal groups, like for example, a pack of zebras, you find already stuff like that. Also, good, good evening, steak. Everything is fine, I think. But yeah, it's it is a concept that appears in the lowest degree of organization. Uh, it doesn't happen that you see it only appear once you possess consciousness or something like that. It is like a common trait of any animal that they need. The females themselves organize their existence in order to ensure that their offspring can survive, while the male plays the role of the hunter in order to provide enough resources for the rest of the pack, as they only need to deal with the harder tasks, let's say. But yeah, I don't know. Tanaos, if you have anything else to ask, please do so. I don't know if I really have any explanation to give in this sense. But yeah, kind of nice to be here, I guess. I can say that, certainly. Very, very good to have the opportunity of being here. After all, it is every single day that I stream nowadays, so every opportunity shall be taken advantage of, let's say, or yeah, maybe bad word choice. Every opportunity shall be properly used. No, obviously, I mean, but in which degree any of those tasks require emotional intelligence for you to say that a man is by default more equally clever to a female in that sense, you know? I get the point, but I don't think it happens like that. I don't. Most people, for example, something along the lines of philosophy. Most people don't even like philosophy, which is the closest to the notions of what are the emotions themselves, I guess. Also, good evening, Savannah. I hope you're well. Public relations out there in society require emotional intelligence from man. Not so, not completely, not completely that. There are there is something along the lines of different traits exist in all people. The moral values are not a trait inherent to people themselves, but rather something that you learn from your environment. And most social relations are based simply on the moral traits themselves, which are observed by the whole society as acceptable or not. They don't in any way have to deal with a higher degree of emotionality because they are rules that are created by the society. Uh, yeah, certainly. And it makes it so that if you get the moral values that exist in the world, you can properly work around the things that happen and work around with the different problems that exist But it doesn't require you to be emotionally clever to understand, for example, there is no correlation between being capable of rationally getting the consequences that will happen to you if you were to kill somebody than if you were, for example, something that is related to emotional intelligence to measure how saying something will impact somebody else in terms of using different words for the sake of achieving the same or a higher or lesser impact with your speech. That is something more along the axiom of emotionality. But the social rules are simply what is it? It's like social rules and conventions are like a programming code. You simply need to be able to read it. You need to have any particular interpretation of that. You simply need to read that and be capable of using it properly. And yeah, I mean, it never is late or early enough to talk about such things like murdering and whatnot. So it also is quite a useful example, I think. After all, you can very much get the point with very extreme examples in some cases, like this one. It wouldn't be the same. For example, if I were to say something like, "Oh wow, you know that you shouldn't say walk," it has nothing to deal with emotionality, also, but it's like, why are we even bringing something like this? Your initial question, true. Your I don't even remember which one was it. Let me check. Eh, if I the initial question, let's see, the one of females having an easier time dating than males. That's uh, let's say we have a 25-year-old single woman and a 25-year-old single man who will find a romantic partner easier and who has more options. It all depends. It all depends. By default, obviously, in that case, by default, female. Eh, Also, I can't run the raid. My PC. I try to play it, but my PC can't run it. Eh, in similar conditions, there is always going to be a predominance of I think it is female aspects, and unless okay, if they are completely average, if they are completely average, the female is going to have higher rates than the male because once again going back to the initial proposition itself, females have an easier time finding themselves somebody who will be capable of bearing the responsibility than males. On the other hand, a female only needs to make the proposition. A male needs to bring something to the table, let's say. Eh, but yeah, I wouldn't say it is like a bad question in any way. It certainly is like that. I mean, if you observe the world, you realize it pretty quickly that there are certain things which order themselves in such a manner, let's say, no matter what you do. But also, Yeah, yeah. A male needs to implement quantum physics. Ah, no, 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 no. Okay, let's say like this. Let's say like this. The problem is you need to possess value. What you can bring of value is more often than not correlated, at the very least in the modern world, by your capacity to sustain yourself and others. And as a male, that is highly predominant, whereas females are seeked, obviously, as I said before, mostly by hedonistic type of desires, which make males orient themselves simply towards girls because they want, yeah, they want, they want. I think there is no way of coding it. They want sex, and on the other hand, female doesn't need to possess anything more than herself to provide that. Whereas if you're looking for a partner, a male needs at the very least to have an acceptable income. That is why one of the main ideas, if you want as a male to be capable of being a good partner, let's say, you need to have a good income. Proper or higher than average monthly income already sets you higher than most males in terms of dating game, simply because you have more value by default. The average man seeks emotion, uh, value. That's okay. Ah, okay. Let me read stuff because I have been talking for too long. You need to possess value. Humans are not objects. You need to possess values. Okay, certainly, but you don't need to. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in the rest of the world. I am sorry. I am sorry, but that isn't how we operate. It would be beautiful if we didn't judge, but we do, my friend. We are literally killing people because they are different than us in minimal differences. Like, what? You are from a different country. I am going to kill you. So I am incredibly sorry to tell you, but certainly there are things which shouldn't be but are. Now, the other thing, value is a imaginary statistic that is tied to the idea of a unified society, which, if you are to believe egalitarian equalistic interpretations of modern social constructs, is a thing we should step away from. Certainly, certainly, it it will be quite useful if we were to stop to organize ourselves in such a manner. After all, the idea itself, the concept of everything needs, as I said before, everything needs to possess a certain intrinsic value because it needs to operate in a meaningful way in the rest of the system, is a very, what is it, labor oriented one, and that by default predisposes the existence of your whole system to make people itself get tired of their existence as long as they are not capable of justifying the different actions and necessities of life. If they can't in any particular manner find a proper justification for their existence, not only you are giving people problems based on the proposition itself of you need to have a value, or you need to have, yeah, you need to provide some type of value, but also you are, even to those who found one, constantly telling them and showing the consequences of not possessing something of this type, which with enough time itself will lead most certainly, at the very least to the average person, to a moral breakdown in terms of how harsh the system is on the rest of the world itself. And once again, it is quite a sad reality, but it is the reality in which we live. It isn't like, oh wow, we are existing in a world in which we have something completely different. No, we live in this reality, sadly, and that is what happens here in the present. Now, also, women are required to present some kind of values in order to succeed in dating. I guess if you are wanting something more along the line of moral values, it obviously depends. Uh, Something that is already known. If you, or not you, if a female is incapable of taking care of a child, probably she's going to have a hard time finding a not a long, a lifelong partner. Societal, economic values. Yeah. But the problem is they are all correlated. That's the problem. Eh, yeah. The proposition itself is a male needs a higher income because of the possibilities of that, whereas a female needs to present the capacity to take care of a child for the sake of, in any kind of way, proving that at the very least, if the male is going to take care of the whole family, the female is going to take care of the offspring. And there is obviously that difference because the distribution of responsibilities exists. That's a thing which makes people order themselves in different ways. But now, the particular question, why are females not required? I wouldn't say gladly, because it literally is happening due to how much we are requiring money to exist nowadays. If you also possess a good salary, even as a female, it makes you a better potential partner. Uh, it isn't that you don't need to present the same thing, but it certainly isn't the most important aspect, let's say. The female is only given birth. The most, yeah, but once again, going back to this proposition of the man needs to take care of the household, therefore, then the man needs to work. Therefore, the man isn't going to be at home because he is working. So, the female needs to be the 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 male needs to be capable of, in any way, providing things, while the female needs to take care of the responsibilities that the male can't fulfill in the rest of the house, let's say. And yeah, in the modern West world, it happens like that. Um, but I think it isn't that wild to say that the most, if they were given the chance, would love to have one, yeah, one single family member working while the other takes care of the child. That is along the lines of, I guess, there finally, emotional intelligence of wow, you become capable of understanding things and realizing that no matter which one takes care of the child, as long as somebody is taking care of the child itself, there is no problem. It can be the father or the mother. There is literally no necessity to worry about it. But the the female or the male would in any way suffice. Whereas the necessity to have such a high income to survive forces both of them to go outside. Yeah, and ends up a very useful idea here ends up alienating the family to be completely together because they need to exert so much themselves in the outside world before they even get to share quality time with one another, which is by default already quite harmful. And yeah, I don't know. I think that is kind of a proper response to that point, and taking a piece of what Savannah says, because I kept thinking about it. It doesn't even need to be that beauty standards don't fully apply when it is on the axiom of male wants to have female, the most basic one. No matter if you are over or underweight, as long as you're capable of surviving by yourself, it already is a good indicator that you might as well have the capacity to also take care of somebody else as a female. It doesn't even mean that you need to be perfect. Yeah, you need to comply to every single beauty standard. Would be the proper definition in in females, whereas in males, sadly, it is more along the lines of you need to be more aligned. You need to be more. Dogs also say hi to my dogs, but you need to be certainly more capable of showing what you can do in terms of, yeah, of everything that we have been talking about in that sense since quite a while. But yeah, I guess that's that's the point, and yeah, I do have those. Today they exist at the very least. We haven't eaten them. What? Uh, they they no, there they are. That's what I wanted to say. Anyways, they are finally silent. But yeah, do we have any other inquire, dear Danaus? Or I mean, I say Danaus literally. Any other question in general? Uh, let me drink some water. Anyways, thank you. But before before we continue, I have something. I have a piece of media that will probably be better at explaining anything than me. I will find it. Give me a second because I don't even remember the exact name. But most, as I said before, most concepts are not even related to any kind of thing that is philosophical. Sadly, they are more related to the nature itself of humans, and there is already a good course on that, which ends up allowing me to not have a necessity to say anything else in terms of, oh wow, I can make an exposition, or I can simply link the the proper course which talks about it. I don't even remember where, but let me see. Because this guy, let me tell you a real life story. I have two groups. Uh, they are very successful, fit with great professions, with white collar, good income, etc. Serious and mature men from 25 to 30. Most of them are single and struggling in the dating game. Only two of them are successful. One of them is a university student who doesn't work, doesn't drive, doesn't do much, but he was lucky, yeah, to to meet a very sweet girl who loves him. And the other, uh, that is, yeah, human psychology, my beloved, yes. How? Okay, I need to order my words to say something because I can explain to you why, particularly this guy who acts like a tyrant gets girls somehow, despite literally treating them worse than the average. Uh, I think. Also, there it is what I said before. This guy is in somewhere inside of here. There is the explanation of how and why do females present something different than males, and therefore how it ends up affecting society itself. It is quite a quite a useful course if you truly have an interest on that. Eh, and also, I don't know. I am. I will abstain from commenting, but thank you for your interest, Savannah. Let's say it like that. Eh, now, there are okay. There are too many things to take into consideration. I am sorry if it gets hard. I think it is kind of what is it? Expressed? No. Okay, it is something implicit. If I say something and you don't get what I said, please ask me. I am I am going to try my best. I am going to try my best to explain. But as as long as most males have the capacity to be in any kind of way capable of showing that they are responsible, fully functional human beings in the average world, it will not happen that until they reach the so called mid age, as in 30s and 40s, the dating game itself won't see them as potentially interesting partners because by default, the average adolescent and young adult is oriented towards more selfish interest. It ends up meaning then that it will be harder for them to find partners of the very same age range, as these people have no interest in something so stable and so oriented towards such a distant future. They simply want that is what I said before. Not only males, that's the problem. In general, the younger you are, the less capable you are of understanding the necessity of creating a fully structured future. Therefore, as a as a human being in general, you will ignore the propositions of somebody who says something about 10 years in the future, based simply on how anything like that. Yeah, I am young, but it doesn't mean anything. I am simply explaining. Thank you. Okay, wait. I was on. Okay. Based on that, by default, males who are capable of presenting that in terms of how they wish to establish a proper family will have a harder time as long as they are in such a short, not short, fuck, in a young age group. I am I am only 21. Thank you for the question. But no, I am not that old. I am barely there. That is the first side of why by default they are going to have a hard time. Now, something which I don't, based on what you say, I can't really know, but by default, if your groups of friends didn't fully didn't fully learn how to socialize, that is quite a huge loss in terms of why you will not find somebody interested in you. There is nothing better than for a first interaction, how socializing affects the rest of things in quite a lot of ways. And because of that, if your groups of friends have trouble socializing, that's probably one of the easiest ways to lose, yeah, to lose potential or points, let's say. And yeah, maybe, unless you really want the explanation itself, just know that there is quite a good reasonable explanation for why being a tyrant works better than being a gentle guy, let's say, in terms of dating. But that doesn't really change that much. Well, I mean, certainly that can be, yeah, unavoidably a problem. Unavoidably a problem. If people were to be incapable of properly, in general, opening up to different groups, you might as well be quite at a disadvantage, let's say. You need to, yeah, there is something like that. Once again, refer yourself to the course to find the exact correct information. But when you group, what? When you grow up with a group of people big enough, you tend to bias yourself towards that group. You will try to avoid people from outside the group because, once again, in this mentality of I need to preserve the species or something like that, it is less risky to take somebody who you already know than to go for somebody who you potentially don't even have a report about, which can allow you to find the stuff and whatnot. Also, who is what? Anyways, it was my phone which charged. This is amazing. uh, but yeah, I guess that I guess that but yeah. Uh, More questions, please? Or yeah, I don't think I have personally. I think at this point, yeah, I feel. Let me say it like this: I feel I have said a lot of stuff. I feel giving any more explanations without any prior context. If there is no other question, I don't really have that much more to say. If there is nothing for me to say, I will prefer to not. And I don't know. Okay, certainly this isn't my discussion. This isn't in any way my discussion. Uh, but I don't know what is being used here to measure what is a warmer or colder society. Because by default, the Americans like to be more selfish and like to be more self centered, based simply on the American ideology. My beloved. Uh, are you why will you not be capable of doing something like that? I kind of. I don't know, man. I don't think you really can't. I don't think people is that unwilling. I mean, let's say it like this. Is your capacity to make a convincing enough argument good enough to argue with somebody and show them that what you can bring to a potential friendship is good enough? Or do you simply go and say, hey, good morning, my friend, and expect them to be your friend? certainly that is quite an impactful thing. It is always easier to make connections if you can get your point across. It doesn't have to deal with particularly where you are. Uh, Social intelligence isn't affected by the outside. If you are somebody good at socializing, you can socialize in anywhere. Let's say it like this: if an American can make a friend in the supermarket in America, this person should probably also be capable of uh, making a friend in the European one, you know? Well, obviously, it's like on the same axiom, like you have on the rightmost end, picture it like this: you have a graphic in which things, the more you are to the right, the more you are better, the more you are to the left, the worse you find yourself. Social ability: if you are socially intelligent, you are good. If you are socially stupid, you are bad. Simple like that, you know? Yeah. I think at the very least there is nothing really to add. Certainly, if you're capable of socializing, and if you're capable in any way of showing that you are somebody who has solid beliefs, you are fine. You are going to have a better time, not that you are simply fine. You're going to have a better time socializing. Being insecure certainly makes people have a lower disposition towards approaching you in general. why is it why is it also good good day, Ren? I hope you're doing well. But I wouldn't say it is something. I know certainly I am quite biased. It is the discussion that I chose to have. I am not the right person. Somebody from outside will probably have a better time. Not me. Uh, but I don't think it is in any kind of way racist once again. I If you are simply talking about social capacities, no matter where you are once again, if you have good enough social capacities, you are going to do well. If you don't develop proper social capacities, you are going to struggle. There are different systems which might allow for a whole country to not develop them, but more often than not, certainly, one tends to over focus on the negative aspects because we live in environments in which we can only observe and we can only, yeah, we can only bias ourselves towards the already known problems which we had rather than to be capable of solving any other type of issue which exists around the rest of our existence. You know? Uh, I, I I wouldn't say. Yeah, I don't know that far. Okay, maybe people people maybe now for real we're getting too much into politics, but I wouldn't say America is complete the most liberal country. Please don't kill me. But if if there are certain problems with saying certain type of words, uh, that already shows that you are having problems in terms of social standards. I am simply trying to say something. Don't kill me. Thank you. That's the end of my message. Nothing else. I already feel like that's too much. Anyways, okay. Nanaos, I have something interesting to say. If you like what it can be, taking it back finally, taking control of what we are saying. If you like what it can be and what it was, what is it that you are actually doing to change how it is based on your interest? And how is it that you are trying to affect the, the society itself in which you live? If it is that you see that there is some potential of making it better. Because if you are capable of realizing that things could be in a better state, what truly is holding you back from trying to make it and to arrange it into an even better state than what it has been so far in terms of the present itself, There is, I mean, you have talked a lot about philosophy. Why should I remind you about the one of the most important parts of philosophical ideas, that philosophy is by nature supposedly also related to politics? If you have something interesting that you believe could change society itself in a meaningful manner, sorry, why are you not trying to enact something like that? But are you doing it? Okay, where are you doing it? That's the question. Because I am not even European. I don't know if you realize that I am not European. I and I don't even have a position in the sense of, oh wow, I am incredibly sure that I will be swayed. I don't even have a stance in that sense. Okay. I get it, I very nice. I guess that's the point. That's what matters. Being able of acting on what you say is important. you know? Ah, yeah, I mean, this ascendants, no, ancestors. Having ancestors doesn't really make you. If we are going by that, everybody is to a certain degree African, because after all, everybody was born in, or the human species supposedly were born in Pangaea, which later on ended up segmenting itself. So we are nothing else but African, so kind of hard to go simply based on that, but yeah, uh, I don't know. I certainly don't know. But anyways, I we it has been an incredibly huge degree of stuff said. I had an idea which I was completely capable of executing. I got incredibly distracted. My bad. There is literally no one but me to blame on that. I think the problem was that I started quite late. I I I hate to make promises, but probably tomorrow I won't be late. Probably. This is why I say Americans aren't true, because they are mostly Europeans or Africans. Yeah, yeah. That's the point. That's basically the point. If you go based on, oh wow, but your ancestors, based on ancestors, we are also part African, everybody, or we are partly not even African, because supposedly the reason from which before the animal which we call nowadays human became that, it was something that existed in a liquid environment in the water, and maybe we were part of the Atlantic Ocean, or what we call nowadays the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe, we don't know, it's that far into the past, but it means quite a little to define yourself by such old things to that degree. If you're talking about, oh yeah, my father, my grandfather, my last 5 generations, okay, but if you're talking about, oh yeah, 1,000 years ago, what? There is literally no way to have recollection of all of that. Yeah, anyways, completely, anyways. Uh, I think I have said enough about something completely unrelated. Tomorrow, tomorrow we will be on the proper point that I wanted to talk about. Tomorrow I will try to focus. Also, hello, dear person, which has a completely impronounceable name. Uh, yes, wait, Fed. I will call you Fed. Welcome, Fed. Yeah. Uh, what is my philosophy like? If you know, if you know about it, I don't need to explain that much more. Positive nihilism. That is the definition. We can go from there, but that is the initial foundation of everything else. We can say, or something along those lines. Really, I haven't really made anything similar to a proper analysis. I stuck with that definition from quite, I think, like a year ago or such. It was the only one which seems to be the closest to what I can define my philosophical stance. So I go with that with when somebody asks. But finally, okay, somebody who knows about it, uh, then I don't need to explain anymore. Amazing. No problem, then us. We're also probably very close to finishing. Like in what time is it? Yeah, in 10 or so more minutes. I will try to also go. No problem. Thank you for the discussion. Yeah. Basically that. Basically that. Eh, you can. Okay. I guess you didn't say no, so I will keep calling you Feb. Feb. If you are working on a book, I will love to read. But as I said, holy shit. Calm down, brother. Let me see. Let me see. Give me a second. There are two types of knowledge: pure reasoning based on logical deduction, and independent or of sensory inputs, and sensory experience gained through observation. Pure reasoning is more valid than sensory experience because it relies solely on logic, while sensory experience depends on both sensory inputs and reasoning to interpret it. Without reasoning, sensory input is meaningless. Okay, is that everything? I mean, so far, I I thought it was going to be different. Yeah, I get it. I, if we're talking about that degree of philosophy, probably something that will be that can't be. That is just a paragraph, my brother. That's like you gave me a piece of one page of a book that might as well have a thousand pages. I that's what I mean. If you have a preliminary PDF or something like that, link it, or this will be the perfect opportunity for here. If you have a PDF, drop it there. Drop it there. If you have it, because certainly it doesn't allow. There is no way to share just the PDF here. Drop it in the Discord. but I don't know. I think okay. The proposition was if I agree or not. I mean, to a certain degree, it makes sense. To a certain degree, it makes sense. But I will say it will be quite useful. I am pretty sure you have already heard about them. If you are, I okay. I will simply say without trying to hold myself so much back. Probably it will be beneficial if you haven't read about them to read about Hume and to read about the obviously the predecessor of Hume, Descartes. Both of them very much propose a similar thing in different manners. The problem is I don't see that much of a difference based on their proposition, based on simply what you gave. It is like a very initial way of defining things. There is certainly always an ordering initial state of matter which allows you to understand the rest of the world, while the other higher world of ideas itself ends up being more of a conceived notion based on the fundamentals that are brought to you, be it by the matter which you encounter, by the what is it, by the feelings, by the sensory input, by whatever kind of thing. It doesn't really happen to be something new in that sense. That is why I say both of them can be useful to analyze. Uh, the only problem, certainly, so far is that, based at the very least, if you're truly going for something like that, I will highly certainly like to read what you are developing, because both guys, both Descartes and Hume, end up with the problem of, because you are consuming the world in a way in which everything else is outside of you and you can't fully understand anything, how can you validate any kind of knowledge? How can you be sure that what you're observing is in any manner something real and something meaningful if what you encounter in the highest degree of things is but a mere idea, nothing else? That's the problem that their philosophical propositions have, that you are not really up to that point creating a solid enough way to show that the rest of the world can be meaningful. Therefore, you are simply stating that any creation of the mind might as well be discarded because you can't be sure if anything at all can fully be real besides yourself, which is an incredibly self centered way of presenting things. So, once again, please. Yeah. That's the problem. Eh, that's yeah, that's the problem. That's the most fundamental problem. Eh, any kind of philosophical way of envisioning things in that particular manner doesn't allow you to see, to conceive the rest of the world in a way in which you can be sure that the rest exists. It's like you end up developing, no matter what you try, something along the lines of a matrix. Uh, but yeah, I I understand what you said. Now, certainly, I think it is kind of understandable based on what I expressed before. I don't think, personally, it is something to agree on. You can't live a life in which you have no capacity of knowing if anything around you is real or not. It doesn't bring you any value to always doubt things. It doesn't bring you anything truly beneficial to be so unsure of the world. So yeah, I wouldn't say I agree. I get the idea, at the very least that, but I don't agree. Yeah. And yeah, sadly, that is one of the, I believe, problems of philosophy. It makes something that should be more rational incredibly harder, based on syllogisms and phraseology, my beloved. Yeah. That's the problem. You simply have to trust stuff. You simply have to rely on something that can very, not even that you can believe is real, because by default you already have shown to yourself things are not true. So, I don't know. I, if it is truly something that you're developing, I hope you can find yourself a way out of that theory. Uh, Something that can be in any way useful. Uh, Being stuck in that phase won't truly bring you that much of a benefit, I would propose. And if you like to consume philosophy, there are a lot more meaningful ways in which you can decipher something than simply trying to do something that so far probably like 20% of philosophy itself has failed to accomplish. That is to explain the perceived reality based on how the senses themselves propose it to you. Um, Probably, I will say certainly, final thing. Probably the most useful side of that is it brings you a certain type of, I think the common language will define it as ego death, something like that, because it allows you to realize that after all, there is literally nothing that you can trust. No matter what you try to trust, there is nothing you can trust. But it certainly is quite hard to establish that even something like that is useful. Even more if you can't save yourself from the incredibly dangerous idea that is presented by the proposition itself. Anyways, completely anyways. But yeah, I think that's my proper response. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I think we are done for today. I mean, it doesn't. It is going to get late for me, so let me go. Yeah. Let me. I will have to leave. We have run out of time yet again. Uh, so yeah, nothing else to say. Please, if you have something to ask, now that I have already linked it, Discord, join Discord, ask stuff there. I am not going to be here until I don't know when. So if you truly need to ask something, ask it there. Uh, I am not here anymore. So yeah, but that's everything so far. Now, as always, because this is tradition, because this is how things work, and also even more because I want it to be that way. It has been an incredibly intense conversation of too many sorts, in too many ways. I didn't believe that we were going to talk about, I don't know, like 20 different topics or such. But we did so. So yeah, we survived. Uh, whenever we can, we're getting back here. Until then, I don't even know when, but until then, uh, as always, keep yourself safe. Thanks for everything, mostly. It has been yet another wonderful time. We will see when we can get back. And now, more important, distractions. Relax a little bit with something. Gameplay. Go. Go and ease off your mind, as they will say. Thanks for being here. It has been yet another wonderful day. Probably at the next occasion, I will try to properly talk about something instead of being completely lost in thoughts. Also, wait. Do we have. Is the bot working? We have the WhatsApp bot working. If you want to use that for the raid, thank you. If not, anyways, the point is go, distract yourself, ease off your mind. We talk too many things. Sorry for that if anything was hard to get. Ah. So yeah, anyways, people, thanks. As always, have a good one. Good night, I guess. And whenever we can, we're getting back here. But that isn't the point. Distractions. Go get yourself. No more thinking for a while. Go watch something to entertain yourself. Who? Siano, which is playing King of the Castle. Nothing else to say. Goodbye. Raid now. Also, I never understood how it works. When I press raid now, does it instantly raid?